In an increasingly interconnected world, international diplomacy continues to shape the landscape of global relations. Recently, Chinese President Xi Jinping extended his warm congratulations to African nations during the 38th African Union AU Summit, emphasizing the significance of cooperation between China and Africa in navigating the complexities of the current international climate. This message, conveyed on February 15, 2025, reflects China's ongoing commitment to strengthening ties with the continent, particularly amidst evolving geopolitical dynamics. Xi's message highlighted the African Union's leadership in fostering regional integration and addressing both local and global challenges. Over the past year, the AU has united and led African countries in vigorously advancing integration, he noted, underscoring the organization's role as a collective voice for Africa on the world stage. This sentiment is echoed in the growing influence of African nations, which has been bolstered by collaborative efforts that have increased their international standing. The Chinese president also pointed to the successful Beijing Summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation in 2024 as a pivotal moment for bilateral relations. He stated that China and Africa have entered a new phase of partnership aimed at building a community with a shared future. This partnership is expected to yield tangible benefits for over 2.8 billion people across both regions as they work together on modernization and various partnership initiatives. While Xi's message was celebratory, it also underscores the broader implications of China's engagement with Africa. The relationship is not only about economic cooperation and development but also about enhancing China's soft power in the region as it seeks to counterbalance the influence of other global powers. This strategic alignment comes at a time when nations are increasingly recognizing the importance of the global South, with China positioning itself as a key partner for African development. The backdrop of this diplomatic engagement is the rapidly changing geopolitical landscape, particularly with the recent developments in U.S.-India relations. As Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with U.S. President Donald Trump shortly after his re-election, Chinese observers noted a palpable unease regarding the implications for regional dynamics. Many in China perceive this meeting as indicative of a potential shift in alliances that could challenge China's interests in Asia. Notably, the interactions between Modi and Trump suggest a reinforcement of the U.S.-India partnership, which some analysts believe could lead to a more assertive stance against China. Zhang Jiadong, a professor at Fudan University, remarked that while India has often been viewed as a secondary player in U.S. trade policy, the shared concern over China's rise places it in a more significant strategic position. As the international community watches these developments unfold, the implications for China-Africa relations and the broader geopolitical environment will remain a focal point. With Xi's message of solidarity and cooperation, it is clear that China aims to solidify its position as a leading partner for African nations while simultaneously navigating the complexities of its relationships with other major powers. Looking ahead, the evolving dynamics between these nations will undoubtedly influence global trade, security, and diplomatic strategies. The outcomes of these engagements may reshape international relations in ways that are yet to be fully understood, making it essential for stakeholders to remain vigilant and responsive to these shifts. As both China and Africa continue to assert their roles on the global stage, the path forward will be defined by collaboration, competition, and the quest for mutual benefits in an increasingly multipolar world. A significant shift in U.S. foreign policy funding cuts to non-profits that promote democracy and document human rights abuses in China have raised concerns among activists and observers alike. This change, driven largely by the initiatives of Elon Musk's newly established Department of Government Efficiency, has sparked a wave of apprehension about the future of advocacy efforts focused on China, a country that has seen an alarming increase in repression under President Xi Jinping. The National Endowment for Democracy (NED), a key U.S. organization that has historically supported various rights groups, has suspended funding to numerous China-focused organizations, leaving their operations in jeopardy. Activists who monitor political imprisonment and advocate for persecuted minorities, including Uyghurs and Tibetans, have expressed deep concern over the implications of this funding freeze. "We are facing significant financial challenges that threaten our ability to continue our work," said Xiao Chang, founder of China Digital Times, a site dedicated to exposing censorship and disinformation in China. His organization has relied on NED funding since its inception in 2013. The abrupt suspension of funds has left many groups scrambling to adjust. The World Uyghur Congress, which has also seen its funding cut, noted that their advocacy is increasingly overshadowed by other global crises, further complicating their mission to raise awareness about the plight of Uyghurs in China. The group highlighted that private donors are often reluctant to support such initiatives due to fear of retribution from the Chinese government. "We had hoped for a supportive stance from the U.S. administration, especially with hawkish figures in key positions," lamented Zumrate Arkan, the Congress's vice president. Chinese nationalists have applauded the funding cuts, interpreting them as a victory for Beijing. Hu Xijin, a former editor of the Global Times, expressed satisfaction over what he views as a long-term strategic advantage for China. "This cutoff will help stabilize our position," he stated, reflecting a sentiment echoed by many within China who see the U.S. support for such groups as interference in their domestic affairs. This development is reflective of a broader trend in U.S. foreign policy, where the prioritization of government efficiency under Musk's leadership has reshaped the landscape for organizations that challenge authoritarian regimes. The NED itself has been a target of Beijing's ire for years, accused of fomenting dissent and destabilizing efforts in regions such as Taiwan and Hong Kong. The endowment's allocation of $315 million this year has been rendered ineffective for many of its grantees, leaving them without crucial resources at a time when their work is more critical than ever. As the situation evolves, the implications of these funding cuts could have far-reaching effects not only on the ground in China but also on the international stage. With a more emboldened Beijing and a retreating U.S. presence in the arena of human rights advocacy, the landscape for civil society in China appears increasingly bleak. The coming months will be vital in determining if these changes signal a permanent shift in U.S. policy or a temporary adjustment as global attention remains fixed on the ongoing struggles for freedom and democracy in the region. Activists and organizations will have to navigate this new reality, seeking alternative funding sources and strategies to continue their vital work amidst growing risks. In recent years, the South China Sea has transformed into a critical arena of geopolitical tension where China's assertive foreign policy increasingly shapes regional dynamics. As nations navigate this contentious maritime landscape, Beijing's influence operations reflect a calculated strategy aimed at cementing its status as a global power. These maneuvers, deeply rooted in President Xi Jinping's vision of national rejuvenation, reveal China's ambitions to project power while challenging traditional norms of international governance. The South China Sea, a pivotal maritime corridor that facilitates approximately 64% of global trade, is bordered by several nations including China, Vietnam, and the Philippines. This vital waterway serves not only as a conduit for international commerce but also as a potential flashpoint for military confrontations. As China consolidates its presence through a series of militarized artificial islands and aggressive maritime tactics, the implications for regional stability are profound. Analysts have noted that if China succeeds in asserting dominion over this region, it could disrupt American trade routes and diminish the influence of other regional powers such as Japan and India, which are increasingly concerned about safeguarding their maritime interests. Beijing's strategy is a direct consequence of historical grievances stemming from what it terms the century of humiliation. Following this period, the Chinese Communist Party has endeavored to establish a narrative of strength and sovereignty, which Xi Jinping has further amplified through his concept of the Chinese dream. This vision encompasses not just economic prosperity but also military prowess and societal harmony. In contrast to previous leaders who advocated a more cautious approach, summarized by the phrase "hide your strength and bide your time," Xi has embraced a more confrontational stance, particularly in the South China Sea. China's influence operations manifest in various forms, from the construction of artificial islands to the aggressive enforcement of its territorial claims. The People's Liberation Army (PLA) has been at the forefront of these initiatives, utilizing a strategy of political warfare that seeks to achieve objectives without direct military confrontation. This approach aligns with Sun Tzu's principle of subduing the enemy without fighting. Evident in the way China employs maritime militia and Coast Guard vessels to assert control over disputed territories. The development and militarization of artificial islands in the Spratly and Paracel archipelagos exemplify this strategy. Since 2013, China has constructed numerous outposts equipped with military infrastructure such as airstrips and naval ports, effectively projecting power across the South China Sea. These bases facilitate China's surveillance capabilities and enable rapid military response to perceived threats, thereby reinforcing its territorial claims. Moreover, China's aggressive pursuit of natural resources within its self-declared nine-dash line underscores its ambition to monopolize vital economic assets. Incidents involving Chinese vessels harassing ships from Vietnam and Indonesia illustrate the lengths to which Beijing will go to assert its dominance. Such actions have led to heightened tensions, prompting regional responses aimed at preserving sovereignty and countering Chinese influence. The Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) further illustrates China's broader strategy to extend its reach beyond the South China Sea by fostering economic dependencies through infrastructure investments. This initiative has been particularly impactful in Southeast Asia, where countries like Malaysia have engaged in projects that enhance China's strategic foothold. Critics argue that these investments often come with strings attached, compelling recipient nations to align with Chinese interests in international forums. In addition to military and economic tactics, China employs gray zone strategies to undermine U.S. influence in the region. By utilizing non-military assets to incrementally assert control, China reduces the risk of direct conflict while effectively reshaping the regional power dynamics. This approach has led to a calculated encirclement of contested areas, often resulting in confrontations with U.S. allies that complicate the geopolitical landscape. The implications of China's actions are far-reaching. While Beijing aims to project itself as a benevolent regional power, its aggressive tactics risk alienating neighboring countries and could provoke a counter-coalition among nations that feel threatened by its expansionist ambitions. The United States, meanwhile, faces the challenge of reinforcing its commitments to allies while managing the delicate balance of power in the region. As the situation evolves, the trajectory of China's influence operations in the South China Sea will undoubtedly shape the future of regional stability and international relations. While these strategies may reduce the likelihood of outright conflict, they also create an environment ripe for miscalculation and escalation. The response of regional actors will be crucial in determining the balance of power in this strategically vital area, suggesting that the coming years will be pivotal in defining the geopolitical landscape of the Asia-Pacific region. In a striking turn of events, President Donald Trump has proposed a dramatic shift in U.S. military spending, suggesting a trilateral agreement with Russia and China to have their defense budgets. This unexpected announcement, made during a recent press conference, has not only raised eyebrows but also sent shockwaves through the defense industry and geopolitical circles. Trump's proposition came during an interaction with reporters at the Oval Office, where he expressed his desire for a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping. "One of the first meetings I want to have is with President Xi of China, President Putin of Russia," he stated, emphasizing that the collective military expenditure could be significantly reduced. "We're spending the money against each other, and we could spend that money for better purpose if we get along," he added. The implications of such a proposal are profound. Currently, U.S. defense spending exceeds $850 billion, dwarfing the military budgets of both Russia and China, which are estimated at approximately $230 billion and $120 billion respectively for 2024. This discrepancy raises questions about the feasibility of Trump's vision, whether Russia and China would be willing to engage in such cuts, especially as both nations are in the midst of military expansions and modernization efforts. A spokesperson for China's foreign ministry responded asserting that their defense spending is essential for safeguarding national sovereignty and security. The reaction from the defense sector has been immediate and negative. Shares in major defense contractors plummeted following Trump's comments, with Lockheed Martin experiencing a nearly 5% drop and Northrop Grumman's stock falling by 7%. Such a decrease in defense spending would not only reshape the U.S. military posture globally but could also disrupt the livelihoods of millions employed in the defense industry, a sensitive topic for lawmakers who rely on defense contracts to support their constituencies. Adding another layer to this complex situation, it has been reported that Trump is directing the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency (DOGE) led by Elon Musk to scrutinize Pentagon spending. This initiative aims to identify potential cuts targeting an ambitious 8% reduction, which could further amplify the tension between the administration and defense contractors. While the defense cuts may appear to be an effort towards a more economical approach to military strategy, they also align with Trump's broader foreign policy vision of fostering closer ties with Russia and China, nations he has previously courted despite the traditional adversarial stance of U.S. foreign policy. Trump's suggestion to reintegrate Russia into the Group of Seven, a coalition of the world's major industrialized nations, further illustrates his willingness to upend established diplomatic norms. Amid these developments, another significant story has emerged from China, which is taking proactive steps to prepare for potential existential threats from space. The Chinese government is recruiting personnel for a new planetary defense force due to increasing concerns regarding asteroids that could potentially impact Earth. This initiative highlights a broader trend of nations enhancing their capabilities in response to emerging threats, whether terrestrial or extraterrestrial. As the global political landscape shifts, the ramifications of Trump's defense spending proposal and China's planetary defense efforts could redefine international relations and military strategies in the years to come. Observers will be closely watching how these developments unfold, particularly as the 2024 elections approach and geopolitical tensions continue to escalate. The potential for collaboration or confrontation among these nuclear powers may very well shape the future of global peace and security. In a rapidly shifting geopolitical landscape, the recent meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and U.S. President Donald Trump has stirred considerable anxiety in Beijing. Observers in China perceive the session as a significant step in enhancing the strategic partnership between India and the United States, particularly amid rising concerns regarding China's expanding influence in the region. As Modi embarked on a two-day visit to the U.S., Chinese analysts were acutely aware of their nation's perceived role as an invisible third party in the India-U.S. discussions. Zhang Jiadong, a prominent scholar at Fudan University, emphasized that while trade tensions exist between India and the U.S., India is not the primary target in Trump's trade war. India is neither a major trading partner nor a significant source of the U.S. trade deficit, he noted, indicating that the focus of the bilateral meeting was largely centered on the common apprehension regarding China's ascendancy. The symbolic nature of Modi's visit, occurring just weeks after Trump's inauguration, underscores the importance both nations place on their partnership. Analysts suggest that Modi's early invitation signals that India is now part of the first echelon of U.S. allies, alongside countries like Israel and Japan. This developing relationship could reshape the alliance dynamics in the Indo-Pacific region, with Trump's administration reportedly prioritizing India in its diplomatic efforts. Hu Shixing, director of the Institute of South Asian Studies, remarked that this high-level engagement indicates a strong mutual interest in fostering collaboration. However, the enthusiasm surrounding this burgeoning partnership is met with skepticism in China. Some observers worry that India may not uphold its previous commitments to China, particularly following the renewed engagement with the U.S. China's apprehension is rooted in recent diplomatic interactions, where India has been less enthusiastic about participating in events like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) summit, which China chairs. Beijing's concerns are further exacerbated by the unique chemistry between Modi and Trump, which some in China interpret as a differential treatment of relationships. Xi Jinping, A professor at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences highlighted the contrast between the swift high-profile discussions between India and the U.S. compared to the more measured engagements China has with India. The rapid development of this relationship could pose significant challenges to China, particularly as it seeks to stabilize its own ties with India, which have seen tensions in recent years over various issues including territorial disputes. The implications of this diplomatic shift are profound. The renewed U.S.-India partnership may bolster India's strategic positioning in the region but could simultaneously exacerbate tensions with China, which views the growing alignment of these two nations with trepidation. The Chinese government is acutely aware that any significant alignment of India with U.S. interests could serve as a catalyst for increased instability in the region. As the Trump administration embarks on its renewed focus on Indo-Pacific dynamics, the ongoing developments in U.S.-India relations will be closely monitored by Beijing. The potential for a strategic realignment in the region influenced by the personal rapport between Modi and Trump raises critical questions about the future of China's relations with both India and the U.S. In conclusion, while the Modi-Trump meeting symbolizes a potential strengthening of ties between India and the United States, it also signals a shift in the regional power dynamics that could lead to increased tensions with China. As these developments unfold, the responses from both New Delhi and Beijing will be pivotal in shaping the geopolitical landscape of the Indo-Pacific region in the years to come. The evolving relationship between India and the U.S. represents not only an opportunity for both nations but also a significant challenge that could redefine regional alliances and influence the balance of power in Asia.